So the first thing I want to do is refer you to the YouTube channel. See our other, if you go to trainings, and then you can see some of the other contracts trainings that we've done. We're doing once a quarter. So, if there's some things that we don't get to in this one, that's a spot that you can always revert to. But I want to make sure that I get your questions answered. So if there are any questions that you all have, use this as an opportunity. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. All I really plan on doing is maybe pulling up that 1 to 4 family, pulling up that addendum, the HOA addendum, and pulling up that third-party financing addendum. And then in some instances, the lead-based paint. Usually when you submit an offer, those are the ones that you're going to be submitting when you submit that offer. But again, the biggest thing is I want to make sure I get you all's questions answered, especially if you're working on a deal or something. All right, is that cool? Like I said, I got the chat up. In the office, I have Vanilla, as well as Miss Joyce. What's up, Joyce? Hey. So that's who's in the building. And then we can see you guys on the screen right here. All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so I know Monica, I know Monica, when do you take your test again?
Next Tuesday.
All right, you're gonna kill it. I know we got Shantae, our newest agents. So Reginald, are you an agent or are you in the process? What's your story?
I am, I'm going to start taking the classes tomorrow and put in my application tomorrow as well.
Okay. How'd you find out about this event?
Miss Kim actually told me about it. She sent it to me like 10 minutes ago, probably.
Oh, Kim Stubblefield?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now Regis, you actually came to our happy hour as well.
I did. It was awesome.
Okay. Yeah, so Kim speaks very highly of you.
Oh, wow.
What I want to do is I want you to go to a link. I want you to schedule a company introduction with me so I can tell you about our affiliate program.
Okay.
Matter of
fact, so I just put it on the website, right?
Well, no, I'm finna go into the chat right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Go to this link, and then I want you to schedule a company introduction with me so I can talk to you about our affiliate program. I think it'll be good for you while you're going through going through getting your license. All right, so I just put it in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so I think one of the things that I spoke about last time we did our contracts training was some areas that you can go to find out about the contracts. Being in real estate for the last 17 years, the one that I'm familiar with is the one called Zip Forms, but they have other ways that you can access the forms. So Zip Forms is one way, a transaction desk. And of my experience with transaction desk, that one seems like a pretty robust software. And if I had to teach or train anybody, or if I had to give a recommendation of where to start with the contracts, I would start learning the transaction desk piece. It comes with your HAR membership. So I would encourage people at the time that I got into it, they didn't have transaction desk. All they had was Zip Forms. That was the only option. So that's why I'm so familiar with it. But you have transaction desk, and then HAR actually allows you to get the forms. Well, you can pull it off their website, and then you can pull some of the forms, well, only the TREC forms. I know y'all know a lot about that from school, but you can only pull the TREC forms from the TREC website. So those are the only places that I know where you can actually pull the forms from. So let's go to a couple of them. All right. So let's start with the TREC website. And I know, like I said, from the TREC website, you're only going to be able to get the TREC forms. Does anybody know the difference between TREC forms and, say, the TAR forms? You remember from when you was in school? What's the difference? What's the main difference? Don't be shy.
I
Yeah.
didn't hear the question. Sorry, I
I'm
walked.
sorry. No, it's okay. I'm saying, what's the main difference between when you hear the word Trek forms, because I've been using Trek forms, the Trek forms and then the TAR forms. You remember what the difference between those were?
I know tricks are the ones that are made or by the trick commission. They monitor them or regulate them or require you to use them. And then the broker lawyer committee are the ones that come up with the forms. Now the other forms you're talking about, I don't know.
You don't know.
But these are the forms that are required in Texas.
All right, let me see if some of my licensed agents know. Shantae, you know the difference between the Trek forms and the other forms?
Okay, sorry. The Texas Association of Realtors, now in the track forms are the ones that we're supposed to be using, right? And the TAR is for, okay, I forgot that one.
All right, Tail. All right, Joyce, come on, man. What's the difference?
I don't know.
You don't know the
The only
difference?
thing I can think of is that the track forms that they're regulated and they're mandated, and we're always supposed to use the up-to-date form on that website so that we know we're using the current and proper form.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So this is the main difference. The forms that were created by the Texas Real Estate Commission, which are these forms that's on the Trek website. All right. So contracts. That right there should help you remember the difference. Trek only does forms that deal with the purchase agreement. So your 1 to 4 family, the addendums that go to the 1 to 4 family, the notices that go with the 1 to 4 family, like Trek only, those are the forms that Trek creates as it relates to the purchase agreements. The other forms like the listing agreement, the buyer's rep, different disclosures, those are TAR forms. Those are the forms that are still somewhat regulated by those associations, HAR, TAR, but those are the TAR forms. So that's the main difference. So if anybody ever asks you what's the difference between the Trek form and the other form, Trek creates the forms as it relates to the purchase agreement. So the 1 to 4 family was not created by HAR or TAR, it was created by Trek. So now when you start looking at the bottom of those forms, so like you go to Trek's website, these are the forms that you're going to see. Like even here, you can see where it says contract addenda. Like these are the main forms that you're going to get from Trek. So if you look at all of these, what are their contracts, right? Amendment to contract, farm and ranch, all of these are Trek forms. 1 to 4 family, condominium, unimproved. So Trek does all the contracts. And then the addendum, so they do the addendum, not necessarily the disclosures. So the addendums, right to terminate, backup. Again, addendums all associated with the contract. Addendum for property subject to mandatory membership. So it does all the addendums. All right, and then these are the other forms that are Trek forms. I didn't even know Trek had other forms, but these are the only other forms. But even these forms, like the resale certificate, that's for the contract, disclosure, buyer's termination of contract, seller's termination of contract. So these are the only other ones. But for the most part, the Trek forms have to do with the contract. If you ever get confused, you can always go to the Trek website and see their forms, right? And then also, you can also, like right here where it says the 1 to 4 family. This is download the form. All of the Trek forms have that little Trek logo on it. And then they have the number. So that's another way for you to determine what's a Trek form and what's not a Trek form. Because the TAR forms, I think they have TAR right here. They definitely don't have that little logo. All right, so the Trek website is somewhere that you can go to find the forms. All right, another place you can go to find the forms is HAR. So I'm gonna log into my HAR. And like I said, if y'all have questions, make sure y'all jump in there. If not, I'm just gonna talk. All right, let's see. So once you sign up with HAR and you log in and all that, you go to dashboard on your HAR. On your dashboard, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see Forms Manager. And when you click on Forms Manager, that's another place that you can go to get the forms. Now, neither Trek hold on. All right. So neither Trek nor HAR under Forms Manager gives you fillable forms. So all you can do is download the form. So if you need to just download it, print it out, and you're gonna handwrite all the stuff in, all right, there we go. That's what I need y'all to see. So from the Trek website and from the HAR website, you're not going to be able to digitally or electronically fill in the form.
Unless you take it.
What you mean?
If you open up the form and so like when you, yeah, well, I just took the download and opened it up in Adobe
On your computer?
on my tablet. If you take it into Adobe where it says fill and sign, then you can fill it in
On your computer?
on yours.
All right, let me see if that, I'm gonna try to download it on my computer. Because you may have to have that software. Yeah, see? Because even when I do that, I can't do it. So unless you have a software on your, where you telling me to go somewhere?
At the bottom, like where it's showing to,
Wait.
at the bottom, is that just the form you already downloaded? Like,
Yeah.
Click down there and put to open in something else. So do you have Adobe on
This is Adobe, let's see. Yeah,
Okay, so you have to have Adobe in order to do the editing on the form?
well, that's if you just download it from HAR, you download it from Trek. Why is it not letting me do this?
Mhm.
Didn't I download it? I downloaded it, didn't I? Got too much open. Let me look for it, yeah, hold on. That's the one I just did, right? All right. Right here. All right, so if I open it, let's see. If I open it with my Adobe software, open with Acrobat. See, it's still not letting me fill it in. So I think you just have to have that software on your computer to allow you to do it. But that's okay, because you can like I said, there are other places that you can go and get these forms that don't require you to have to download it and fill it in. I was just saying, so from the Trek website and from the HAR website, that's just somewhere that you can go, a library you can go to if you want to be able to just print the form out and you don't have to fill it out digitally. All right.
Okay.
Okay, now the other place, if you go to HAR. All right, go to dashboard. No, not dashboard. So once you log into HAR, it gives you this little menu to the left. You click on tools. You click on, let's see. MLS tools. Third-party tools. There we go. All right. So you click on tools, under tools, third-party tools, and then you see transaction desk and you see dot loop. Dot loop is another place that you can get the forms. So, and again, all of this is you're already paying for when you're a member of HAR. So if you click, we'll click on dot loop. Dot loop is a transaction management software that you can utilize. It is a member benefit. So even like right here, it says it replaces your document management, e-signature, storage, and compliance management systems with a single platform. So dot loop does all of that. Just click on agents. All right, so I'm not signed up with it, but you have to sign up. And again, it comes with your membership. I've had people or agents use all of it. They've used dot loop, they've used transaction desk. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it's just a matter of your preference. I think the point of today is just making you all aware that these softwares are out there to make your life easier for what you're doing. Okay, so dot loop is another one that you can utilize. All right, so now transaction desk, I do have an account with them. So when transaction desk opens up, you can use it as your document storage for your transactions. You can use it for getting documents signed digitally. So say if you're doing a DocuSign, like I still use DocuSign because like I said, when I first got into real estate, they didn't have all of this. They didn't have dot loop, they didn't have transaction desk. They did have DocuSign. DocuSign was the only method that you could use to get things signed electronically. But now it's already built in. So you guys don't have to get DocuSign. Y'all can just utilize what you're already paying for. But you do electronic signing, you can email documents, you can even upload documents. Now, I don't know if you can create templates. Now, I know with DocuSign, you can create templates. That was something that I appreciated with DocuSign. But I don't know, it's not showing if you can create templates. But you'll see this little menu to the left that shows your transactions. That's like your home page. That's if you need to sign. These are the forms. So when you click on forms, it actually populates. You see right here, we kind of talked about it earlier, your Houston Association of Realtors forms, your Texas Real Estate Commission forms or TREC forms, and then your Texas Realtors forms. Now, the Texas Realtors forms and the Houston Association of Realtors forms, for the most part, are going to be the same forms, for the most part. So like you can kind of, I would like typically what I would do, because all of the Houston Association of Realtor forms should be with the Texas forms. It should be. So I would go to the TAR, the Texas forms. I don't think I've ever needed I don't think I've ever needed a Houston Association of Realtors form that was not a part of the Texas Realtors forms. I don't think I've ever done that. So I would for the most part just go to the TAR forms if you don't need, if it's anything other than a TREC form. And this should have everything else. And then I mentioned about those numbers. So right here on any TAR form, you're going to see TXR and then the number versus the TREC that we saw on the 1-to-4 family contract. So there's some additional addendums that TAR has You know, but when I was practicing real estate, I didn't even really concern myself with all of the addendums and all of the disclosures. Because you can get overwhelmed with trying to remember all the forms that you need to submit, right? And a lot of it, I think, is the seller's preference. The 3 forms that I focused on were the 1-to-4 family contract, the addendum, because most homes are in a homeowners association. So the addendum for mandatory, right here where it says addendum for property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association, that's your HOA addendum, that one, and then your third-party financing addendum. Now, unless the house was built before 1978, if it was built before 1978, then I would include that lead-based paint addendum. But those were the 4 addendums that whenever I submitted an offer, that we focused on as it related to submitting.
The 4 you focus on?
Absolutely. So the 1-to-4 family contract, the third-party financing addendum, the HOA addendum, but the way that it's listed is saying they have it addendum for property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association. We call that the HOA addendum, but that's the actual title if you're trying to search for it. All right, and then right here, this addendum for seller's disclosure of information on lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards. That's if a house was built before 1978, right? And you want to disclose that information. So that was that 4th addendum. Now, there are other addendums that may work. Like if you have a particular situation, I guess what my recommendation would be is that if there's a particular situation between the buyer and the seller that would prompt you to maybe write it in special provisions, before you write it in special provisions, then I would go through looking at some of these other forms to see if there's a form that already addresses it, right? So that's how I would look at it. But if it's just seems like it's just a straightforward situation, those them 4 forms. Just make sure we have all 4 of those when submitting the offer. All right. So again, with Transaction Desk, you can see it's like a borderline CRM as well, because you can have tasks. You know, create your task list or to-do list. You can add your contacts. Right. So, and again, remember, you know, and I keep reiterating this, you're already paying for it. It comes with your HAR membership. Right. When I first got into real estate, this wasn't stuff that they had. So I never started using it. I never incorporated this stuff into my business because they didn't have it. But you all have these tools. So now instead of y'all paying the extra money for a DocuSign or for a Salesforce and I'm not saying you don't necessarily that at some point you may not need to graduate to that. I'm saying start now, just use the free tools that you have access to, and then just use that as like your contact management system or your transaction management system. Okay. All right. So that was so that's Transaction Desk. All right. Zip forms. The other place, and this is for us old timers like me. We would go to a place called Zip Forms. You can't even access it through HAR. You got to access it through your own thing. So Zip Form online. Now you still get Zip Forms. Once you go in and you set up your Texas Realtors account, hopefully all of you all have done that have signed up with HAR. You've gone to the texasrealestate.com. You've gone to this site and you've created your account for Realtor members. Then you've already created it, right? Again, you're already paying for it, might as well use it. But even on this site, you can access Zip Forms. You can access from this site once you've signed in, or you can just go to Zip Forms online, Zip Forms Plus, and it'll log you in. So this is just another option. So right now I'm giving you, even from a digital input to where you like literally typing in the information on the contracts, I've given you 3 options. You can either use Dotloop, You could either use Transaction Desk or you can use Zip Forms Online. All three of those allow you, not only do they allow you to physically type into each document, they also allow you to, if you want to do electronic sign-in, send it to the client, they allow all that as well. Now, Zip Forms, yeah, it even allows you to create a task. It allows you to, it has templates here. It allows you to create templates, add your contacts. So if you want to add contacts and use this as a CRM or a customer relationship management system, you can do that as well. You have your transactions and then you also have your forms. You click on forms and it has the same libraries. It has your Texas Realtors library. It has the Houston Association of Realtors library. It has, I'm gonna check form. Oh, right here, the Texas Real Estate Commission library. And now this one has some other libraries on there as well. It has Cinch Home Services. They got in there. Oh, they got their Cinch application in here. So Cinch is a home warranty company. So their library is in there. And then NAR has all of their NAR forms in there. So I guess they got other stuff. But all of your forms are in, and so this is Zip Forms. You can utilize this as well. All right. All right. So for the purposes of today's training, we're going to go through Transaction Desk. We're going to use Transaction Desk. Okay. Again, I'm going to say it again. You got 3 places that you can go to do digital: Transaction Desk, Dotloop, Zip Forms. Okay. And then there are 2 places you can go if you just want to download the documents, unless you have that Adobe Acrobat software on your computer that lets you fill it in. But you can just download them, print them out or whatever. And that's HAR Forms Manager. And that's the Texas Real Estate Commission's website, but you're only going to be able to pull TREC forms when you go to that website. All right. Any questions? No questions? Everybody good for right now? I'm not talking over anybody's head. All right.
No, we're good.
Everybody's good. All right. Okay. So now, somebody tell me, what were the 4 forms that I said that you should just be focused on when submitting your offer? What are the 4 forms?
1 to 4 contracts, the addendum of the property subject mandatory HOA, and the 3-party financial addendum, and the
Okay.
and maybe the 1968 lead-based paint.
All right, 1978.
Yeah, that's it, 78. I'm looking at it, I'm sorry.
No worries, 1978. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and let's see, we'll create a transaction. So I can pull these forms. So we'll go to forms. All right, now the Wonderful Family form, is that a TREC form or is that a Texas Realtors form? Say it.
TREC.
All right, it's a TREC. Don't be shy now. If you know the answer. All right, so that's a TREC form. So I'm gonna go into the folder. All right, so I'm looking for Wonderful Family. These should be in alphabetical order. It is Wonderful Family. So I'm gonna put a checkbox. So I'm gonna select that. All right, 3rd-party financing addendum. Is that a TREC form or a TAR form? Texas Realtors form. It's a Texas Realtors. All right. So Joyce say Texas Realtors. Anybody else? Is it a tech? Y'all agree with Joyce or y'all feel like it's a TREC form? The 3rd-party financing addendum.
Trick form.
All right, Shantae say TREC. All right, Monica, what you think? You the top breaker. Huh? You muted.
Purchase, so yeah, TREC form.
Look,
Right, cool.
TREC. Now y'all done got Joyce. Joyce has changed her mind. Yes, so that's a TREC form as well. Now explain, why is it a TREC form, Joyce?
Because it's dealing with the purchase.
Because it's dealing with the purchase, absolutely. All right, let's see if we can find that one. 3rd-party financing. Boom, there it is. All right. Property in a mandatory association. Is that a TREC form or is that a Texas Realtors form.
Gotta be text.
Trick. All right, so Shantae say trick. What'd you say, Monica?
What is it called? What is it called again?
It's the addendum for mandatory membership in a property owners association.
Oh, the HOA form, trick.
It's a trick. Joyce?
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's a trick, because on these forms that you gave us, you said these were forms to focus on your purchasing.
Purchase agreement, right?
Yes.
Oh, look at her. You coming right. All right, so let's look for addendum for property subject to mandatory membership. All right, there it is. All right, and then the lead-based paint. Is that a trick form or a Texas Realtors form?
Trick form.
Trick, yeah. So Joyce figured it out. All of them gonna be trick forms. Now, why are all of them trick forms?
Because yeah.
Dealing with the purchase.
They all deal with purchase. All right, so let's look at that one. Addendum for seller's disclosure right here. Boom. All right, so they're all trick forms. All right, so now that we've selected all of them, I need to add them into a transaction. Let's see if I can remember how to add them to a transaction. I must have to create a transaction. Let me go back to transaction. Let's create transaction. All right, that's what I gotta do. All right, so we're gonna call this person Joe Smith. We're gonna say this is a residential purchase. All right. So now what this is asking right here where it says import data, it's asking us when I begin to do my contract offer, if I can import some data, the legal description. And what it's saying is I can pull that data from the MLS, HAR, or I can pull it from Realist Text. So either one of them works. I would do HAR MLS because it has more data points that you could probably pull in. But you can do Realist Text as well. Oh, but look, it's saying MLS number. So I guess what you would need is you would need the MLS number for a property. Let's try it, man. Let's go ahead and pull us one. Let's put an offer on a house. Let's see, go to Matrix. Let's read that later. Search single family. All right, let's put in a zip code. Let's say 77009. So, all right, so there's a house, 699,000. Let's put an offer in on that. 1832 Lexington. Let's see. Ain't too bad. Y'all see the house we about to buy? Look, it's gotta be for the location. Oh, look at that slate. I see the slate. Kitchen countertops. Track lighting. I see. Yeah, all right, Lexington, let's rock. You go to patio. All right, so that's our house. We're gonna go buy it. 2,300 square foot house built in 1939. It's one of them old in the Montrose area. Gotta be paying for location. All right, so let's put the MLS number in there. Add me as a selling agent, and then we're gonna say create. All right, so y'all see how it pulled all that information in there? So these are all data points. Comments, all of that. All right. All right, so let's press next. What does it say? Open. All right, so we'll press next. Now, if you're not a realtor, and if you're by your computer, I want you to go ahead and go to the TREC website, and I want you to pull up those 4 forms. Pull them up. And like Vanilla, she got hers. You print out all 4?
No, just,
All right. Pull up the 4 forms, because I'm not gonna go through item by item, but if you're going through it and you have a question, I want you to ask me about it. Okay, so it asks about transaction dates. I don't really care about none of that. Next. Okay. So selling broker, Brooks and Davis, selling agent, Michael Davis. All right, so it's got all that in there. Okay, so now this is where we can put our forms. All right, so I press add. What kind of forms are they?
TREC.
All right, TREC forms. Go to TREC. All right, we're gonna go to mandatory membership. What are the 4 forms I need? I got HOA. What's the other?
third-party finance,
Third-party financing.
lead-based, 1 to 4.
All right, third-party financing. 1 to 4 family.
Another one is a dinner.
It's the
The HOA, the lead.
yeah, this addendum for disclosure of info on lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards. Mm. All right, so now we're gonna add it. Boom. All right, so they're added to our transaction. So they got this little wizard you can use too. Ooh, boy, I'm telling you, if I'd have had this when I was doing it, man, we'd have been cranking out stuff. Look, they even give you a fax cover sheet. I love it. All right, so I press done. See what it give me. All right, so it got all my stuff in there. I got all my forms. So it even got the whole transaction set up. A listing price, documents, all of that. What's this? Is that the email list? Oh, that's a seller's disclosure. And look, it had this seller's disclosure.
Oh.
Oh, boy, I tell you, man, transaction this right here. That's a nifty tool. All right, so we're gonna start with the 1 to 4 family. So now this is as if we're filling out a contract, right? For our client. We got a client want to buy this house. We got the dream client. They want to, and then they want to offer list price. So, right here, section 1, we put the names, right? So the seller's name, now we don't have that. So what do y'all think we get the seller's name from? Where y'all think we get the seller's name?
So,
Thank you. All right, from the other agent. I was just like, do not overthink that. I thought y'all was gonna go. I don't want y'all to be going out here trying to do all kind of research to try to find the all right. Matter of fact, it blank and let the other agent put that information in there. Some people used to go to the tax write-up, but sometimes the taxes could be wrong. So I wouldn't even do that. I would just leave it blank. All right. How you find the buyer's name? Right. Shantae, how you find the buyer's name?
From the buyer. I'm gonna get his information, right? From the buyer.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. That's what Joyce said. Joyce is like, well, if I'm representing him, I should know his name. Yeah, you should know. If you represent a buyer and you don't know his name, then that's a problem.
Okay.
All right. So now, right here, although we populated it from the MLS, it didn't actually put this information in here, which is the, what is this called? Lot block. What do we call that? Not property description. What kind of description? These one of them, these one of them terms from your class. Vanilla, what you call a lot block? What's that called? What kind of? You don't know? Well, I'm gonna tell Dr.
Oh my God, what is
I mean,
that?
I'm gonna tell Dr. Crawford. I'm gonna tell on you. All right, what's that description card right there that has the lot in the block?
Oh, the number of the lot and the number of the block.
Uh-huh.
The land description?
Not land description. Start with an L though. L E G A L.
The legal description?
Yeah.
Legal description.
Legal description.
I know y'all have heard that term before. Y'all
Yeah.
heard that term before?
Yeah.
Shame. I'm telling.
Oh,
I ain't gonna tell on y'all. All right, so this is the write-up. All right, so it didn't add it in there. But here's the legal description. All right, so it doesn't say lot. Y'all know what TRS is? Most of the time it'll say lot.
No, I don't know.
TRS is tract. So in essence, what it's saying is that when this area was developed, it wasn't developed based off of lots. It was developed based off of smaller portions called tracts. And what this is saying, tracts 13 and 14A. So it looks like tract 14 was broke up into sections. So they've had an A and they had to have a B or a C that maybe the neighbor is on. So the legal description for here is tracts 13 and 14A, block 5 in the subdivision of Richwood. All right. So with that being said, how do we put this on the contract? What y'all think?
Put it in.
CRS 13, 14A.
That's right. That's all you do. You just add that right there. All right. And our block was 5. Block 5. Richwood. All right. So we got our legal description in there. We got our address in there. All right. So now we got a client. They're gonna put 20% down. All right. So where do we put the down payment? Where y'all think we put down payment on the contract? How much was it? $699? Y'all know how to calculate down payment?
The price of the house.
All right, price of the house is $699. How much is the down payment if the client's putting 20% down? Where my math whiz is at? Now this is something you had to do. Like a lot of that math on the exam, you ain't got to do. But this one right here, you got to know how to calculate that. Calculate that down payment. Whether it's 3%, 5%, 10%, 20%, you gotta know how to calculate. So do y'all know how to calculate down payment?
We take the
Shantae, Monica?
listed price times .20.
All right, listing price times 0.20 for 20%. Now, if it was 5%, what would we multiply by? All right, if it was 3.5%, what would we do?
0.03.
All right, good. All right, Shantae, you know how to calculate down payment?
Yes, you just went over it, right?
I did. All right, so give me what the down payment is of our list price. List price is $699.
Okay, $699. And you said mine, you said, okay, hold on.
20% down.
699,000 or
That's what we paying. We paying
What's up?
$699 for this beauty right here, baby.
about 39,000?
39,000. All right, so they putting 39,000 down. Where we put that on this contract? Because right here it says sales price.
130.
So the total sales price, I say we paying the full amount. So total sales price is what?
$699.
$699. So let's just go ahead and put that right there. Oh, you know what? They won't even let you do it. I'm gonna tell you why I won't let you do it. Hey, Michaela, what you doing? No, we're just over here learning. We learning.
Look like what is it, transactions?
Yeah, it's a contract. Yeah. No, you can sit right there. Yeah. All right. So it's not gonna let us do it that way. But we do know that the total sales price is $699, right?
Right.
Okay, so now, if they're putting 39,000 down, does that leave that needs to be financed?
660.
660. All right. So now, even if we don't start with A and we start with B, it says sum of all financing described. What does 660 represent?
The amount that's gonna be financed.
The amount that's gonna be financed. All right, so if we put we should be able to put 660, yeah. There. All right, now is our total sales price 660?
No,
What is it?
$699.
All right, so where do you think we need to put the down payment? If we're gonna if we're gonna get C to equal 699, where do you think we need to put the down payment? Cash portion. So that's what
Oh, okay.
portion represents. And in essence, it represents how much you putting down. So if it was 3.5%, we would put that number here. If it was 5%, you would put that. 10%, we're doing 20%. Hell, if they want to pay half of it, 50% down, whatever it is, the cash portion is gonna go here. So we're gonna put 39,000. All right, so now does that add up to our purchase price?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it wouldn't let me type it in there, because it's a formula, it automatically calculates it. All right, so which of these addendums do we have as it relates to financing? Third-party financing addendum, loan assumption addendum, seller financing addendum.
We have the third party one.
All right, so that's the checkbox, and we're gonna check. All right, so Michaela, this is the contract that you submit when we're submitting offers.
Okay.
All right, so we're going through an offer for John Smith. John Smith is buying a house in Montrose area. All right, now I'll spend all day going through all of this stuff, right? So unless you have any particular question about some of the other elements on the contract, I'm just gonna go through some of the basics. Like this is a basic filling out of the offer, right? Because we only got about an hour left.
Can you go back up to the top? I had to switch screens. Where you put in the legal description?
There we are. You see it?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to write that
So
in.
this is for a transaction coordinator.
Either.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would just say speak from a realtor standpoint.
Okay.
Because before you hire a transaction coordinator, you got to do it yourself. And even if you hire a transaction coordinator, you need to know what they're doing
Right.
for the amount of money that you're paying for.
What is the TRS again?
What's up, superstar? What, superstar? They made you drive all the way out here to get that check, just to get your check. What, did you tell him to? Did you tell him to do it?
I did. I wrote it on the wire thing. They asked, what's your address? I gave them my address. They sent it here. So now.
Yeah, to drive all the way out
$30
here.
gas, get here and back.
Boy.
I know, y'all. I know it don't. It matters. It matters.
So this is Sydney Ely, one of our superstar senior agents.
Hi.
She know how to do all this. She know how to submit offers.
Yes,
and
yes.
contracts.
Oh, is this a new
Mhm.
offer training? Nice.
Yes, offer
Make sure
training.
y'all don't forget all them check marks now. There's a couple check marks you can forget in there.
That you can,
Yeah.
well, if they forget, I'm gonna say, y'all call Sydney.
Call
Sydney
me
will
up.
tell y'all
Yeah,
what to do.
all right.
All right.
Give me
I'm
the
like your
intro.
dog,
What's
I'm
happening?
like your dog.
My dog.
You want to be on the Facebook with your dog?
Oh, snap. No, I always find dogs, or dogs always find me, and I find their home. But yes. So you got a good dog.
That's how she do, boy.
I see.
All
What's your
right.
name on there?
Vanilla Rush.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah. I
Vanilla Rush.
found his home, so I had to give him back.
Had to give them away.
All right, y'all.
All right, don't make that drive back to Dallas.
Huh?
Make that drive back to Dallas
I
from where you
know,
came
right?
from.
All right.
See you later. All right. All right. Sydney was coming to pick up some money. See, that's the end result after we do all of this.
Yeah.
And they get down to the end, we come to pick them checks up. All right. All right. So TRS stands for tracks. So whatever you see here, there may be some other stuff you may see here. Anything that go before block, if we're not dealing with, as long as you got a block, anything that go before it, just put in that lot number, that lot space. Okay.
Got it.
All right. All right. So earnest money. So how much earnest money we gonna put down? Do y'all know how much? Like if your clients say, Monica, how much earnest money should I put down? Would you know how to answer that question? You say what?
Isn't it, no, not really.
Okay, Joyce, what would you say?
I wouldn't know what to say,
You
but I
would,
would, no, I would at least, 3%.
3%?
Yeah.
Isn't that like a deposit?
Yeah. How much would you say, Shantae? They say, Shantae, how much earnest money should I put down? What would you say to the people?
I would say 3% too, between
3%?
3 to 6, maybe, 3 to 6.
All right. Woohoo, I don't want y'all to be my realtors, man. Have me put
Oh,
that
no.
money. I may lose that money. Let's see, 3%. What's 3%? Let's see how much money that is. 103. Ooh, that's $20,000. Yeah, that's almost as much as the down payment. I ain't putting that. Oh, we're not doing that. All right, so all right, so most people do maybe about 1%,
Okay.
right?
Okay. 1%.
If you're representing a buyer, right? If you're representing a buyer, then what would be in the buyer's best interest as it relates to the amount of earnest money? What would be the absolute best interest of the buyer?
So they don't lose.
2
it?
to 1%,
Right, so they don't lose anything. Right, nothing. Right, there we go. So
nothing. Okay.
it's in the buyer's best interest is for them not to put no earnest money up, because then they're not gonna lose nothing, right? And what's in the best interest of the seller?
Get the most.
To get as much as they can. All right, so now, although earnest money is a negotiable feature, it's really case by case. That's really how you answer that question. Like, so there is no, well, what's the standard amount of earnest money across the board? There really is no standard because it's case by case, right? If it's been a property that's been on the market and say ain't nobody biting on it and the seller just want to move and they just want to get rid of it, well, now you can be aggressive on earnest money and be like, man, I'm gonna give you $10 or $5, right? Because the seller just want to get rid of it if you're representing a buyer. But now if you got a house that got like 10 offers on it and you want to be competitive, then now you maybe can use earnest money as something to make you more competitive.
Okay.
See that, then maybe you put up that 3%. So you can get picked. But yeah, but in this situation, we're not gonna say it's not a multiple offer situation. It's just a pretty standard deal. So no, we're gonna put something so they can take us seriously. But I would say instead of putting 1%, let's say we'll put 0.5%, right? So 0.5% is about $3,500. All right, so we're gonna put $3,500 up. All right, and that's where we put it. All right, so now this right here where it says buyer must deliver to, they're talking about the title company, the escrow agent. What do we put? How do we fill this blank in? Who picks the title company? Oh, that is the title company.
Okay.
Who picks the title company?
Bye.
The buyer. You say the buyer. Does the buyer pick the title company, y'all?
Can.
The buyer can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Shante,
think
you
they
say
can
yes.
choose. Yeah, they
Huh?
could choose which
They can
title
choose.
company they want to go to, right?
Okay, so the buyer can choose. What'd you say, Vanessa? Buyer. All right. So are y'all saying the seller cannot choose?
The seller ought to buy it too.
All right, the seller or the buyer. Seller or the buyer. All right. What y'all think? Y'all feel like the seller or the buyer or the buyer?
I think
I
the
think
buyer,
it's the
because the
buyer.
earnest money gets delivered to, like, the buyer gives the earnest money to us, right? And we take it to the title company.
Correct.
So,
Or they don't even necessarily have to give us the earnest money. They can send it to the title company themselves. What usually happens is the title company will send a FedEx slip or something, and they'll have them FedEx the earnest money to them. But there are, some people, if you want to go pick it up from them or they want to drop it off and then it's your responsibility to get it to the title company. You can handle it that way. It's just about the level of service that you want to offer to your client. But who picks the title company? All right, look at it from this
well,
standpoint.
maybe it's the seller.
Okay, so you say this up. Look at it from this standpoint. It would be in the buyer's best interest if who picked it.
They pick it.
All right. It would be in the seller's best interest if who picked it?
They pick it.
The seller,
Well,
right? So it's in the best interest if the buyer picks it. It's in the seller's best interest if the seller picks it. Now, why? Why do you think it would be in the buyer's best interest if they pick the title company?
They don't want to.
They putting the money down. And why do you think it would be in the seller's best interest if the seller picked it or the seller's agent?
because they're the one doing the purchasing.
They're probably more familiar with that.
More familiar. Really, it's really boils down to that, right? You want to pick the title company because you may have a relationship with them. So if it comes up, like, you know who you're working with, like, you know what kind of personalities you're dealing with, you know how they do business. So you're more familiar with how they do business, right? And so you always want to put yourself and your client in a position to where you're familiar with the people that's going to be working on the transaction, right? So whether it's the buyer or the seller, it would be in either one of their best interests if their agent gave the recommendation, if that agent was more familiar with that title company that they work for. All right. So, but even with that being said, who picks?
Right. Right? I mean, they're gonna put their money down.
Either one could pick.
Okay, either one.
Right.
Either one.
So either one can pick, but how do we do it? Now, how do y'all know how we typically do it? Y'all want to know how we typically do it? All right, so this is how we typically decide. Because what we determined, Joyce, was it's in either one of them's best, it's in the seller's best interest to pick, and it's in the buyer's best interest to pick, because you want to be doing business with somebody that you're more familiar with. Like the buyer's agent will be more familiar with whoever they recommend, and the seller's agent will be more familiar with whoever they recommend.
Okay.
So it's always better to put yourself and your client in a situation where you're doing business with somebody that you're already familiar with. All right, so the buyer's vying to be able to pick, the seller's like, no, we want to pick, whatever. But this is how we typically pick. Whoever's paying the owner's title policy, you pick it. right? Most of the time, the seller pays the owner's title policy. So the seller's agent gives the recommendation most of the time. When I was a listing agent, if we're paying the owner's title policy, we picking the title company. Now there'll be some buyer's agents who are like, no, it's the right of the buyer. The buyer gets to pick. The buyer should choose. We say, all right, perfect. You can absolutely use your title company, but y'all got to pay for the owner's title policy. Now, if you want us to pay for the owner's title policy, then we get to pick the title company. So that's typically how we
Mhm.
do that.
Okay.
Hold on, y'all. Let me get this information to somebody real quick.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of looking over contracts and I know there was, I think it's on like section 2 or something, like for the improvements. If something was to be off and the contracts were already signed and they need to like, if they moved in the house and everything is already signed, if something was off, do they have to then buy another contract and another title?
What do you mean something was off?
Because I know that I remember in the course it was saying like once everything is signed and then they move into the house, and if something, let's say the AC wasn't working or something like that, they will have to, the realtor will have to come out of pocket for, we have to buy like a new
Maybe.
contract.
Well, you don't have to do another contract because if it's done and they moved in, I mean, we've closed. Like, deal is over with. So now if that client moves in and the buyer moves in and it's some repairs that was overlooked or something broke and the realtor knew about it, if he knew about it, then he's liable. But if he didn't know about it, I mean, things break. And if it just breaks after you moved in, a lot of times they'll have what's called a home warranty. We'll see that part in the contract, and then that home warranty may cover that. And then you also may find it through the inspection. They'll see that as well. All right. So yeah, that's how we deal with that. So, you know, the seller is paying for it. We talked to the listing agent and they said 1, 2, 3, you know, they're going to, we'll just say White Star Title. White Star Title Company. So it says, we'll ask them for a name. Who's the escrow officer? So it's my guy right here. That's our guy. But they happen to use the same title company we use, White Star Title. Oh no, that's not right. I didn't do that right. You put the name of the title company here, and then you put the address right here. So the address 123 Main Street. All right. So White Star Title as escrow agent at, and then put the address, earnest money. All right, and then option money. Okay, so do we know what the option money is? And this is probably going to come into your question, Michaela.
It's like if the buyer wanted to put down something just to give the agent this extra money.
I wish they was giving us a girl. They ain't out here doing that. Oh, they trying to take that
Yeah,
cash.
they discovered that something was wrong that was initially noticed and they have the option to take that money or put it for repairs or.
Close, not yet though. Option money. Shantae, you know what the option money is for?
The option money is for the buyer to put down, but also if something doesn't go right, that they're able to get that money back, right?
What money?
The option money or the down payment he puts down.
Nope.
No?
Stuff. Because think about it, the down payment's not paid until when? To close.
Closing.
All right, so I ain't paid no down payment. Earnest money.
Okay.
Get your earnest money back. Now you get your earnest money back. All right, so option money covers this part. You see right here, termination option. So this right here kind of explains it.
Right.
Consideration, Seller acknowledges and buyer's agreement to pay the option fee within time required. Seller grants buyer the unrestricted right. So what it does is it gives the buyer the unrestricted right, meaning
To terminate.
whatever reason, I can terminate this contract by giving notice of termination within a certain amount of days after the effective date. So that's what the option fee does. It just gives the buyer the unrestricted right for whatever reason. I could just change my mind, walk away, and get my earnest money back. All right, it's for a certain amount of days. So now,
Okay, but that's my. Okay,
what's your question?
Okay, so how much will be determined that they should put down for the option?
All right, so
Because that was gonna be one of my questions, where does the option fit at in the contract?
perfect. That's a great question. So let's go back to how I framed it before. What would be the number that's for the buyer's best interest?
Oh, that's right.
All right,
Nothing.
right? Nothing, right? As low as possible. And what would be what's in the seller's best interest?
As much as possible.
As much as possible.
As much as possible. You're gonna see that common theme as we go through this contract. That the answer to your
Okay,
always gonna be, well, if I'm representing the seller, I'm trying to get it as much as I can. If I'm representing the buyer, then I'm trying to have it as low as it can. So again, it's case by case. If you in a situation and this deal don't have a lot of activity, don't have a lot of action, don't have a lot of eyeballs, y'all feel real good that y'all can get it, then we may say $20. Or we may say, no, you know what, just give us a $5 option period at no cost. Give us 5 days to walk away or whatever.
okay.
If it's a lot of, I mean, not 5 days, I'm saying give us 10 days or give us 15 days and maybe we pay you $10, $50, whatever, because it's negotiable. All of it's negotiable regardless. But if it's a lot of competition, then that's another one of those things that you say, okay, well, look, I got my inspector. He said he can be there tomorrow. So man, let's just try to do a 3-day option. Get him in there. He's saying get us the report the same day, gives us a day for negotiation. You know what I'm saying? We ask for 3 days. Tell them we'll put up $100 for 3 days just because we're trying to be competitive, right? But you still want to have your opportunity to see if there's any major issues with the house. So that when, to your question, the way to avoid something breaking after the people move in is through this, the option period, hiring an inspector, having that inspector go look at that house from top to bottom, inside out, all the way around, right? Give you this thick report of information that the buyer can see, which greatly limits that situation from happening. That stuff break after you move in. So yeah, so with termination, so the amount and the amount of days, the amount that you put for the fee and amount of days, it's all case by case and it's negotiable. Okay.
Mhm.
For us, I mean, what I've been hearing them put down like $250 for 7 days is what I've been hearing lately. When I was doing it, I was like $100. Man, I was doing like $50 for 10 days when I was doing it. But at the time that I was doing it, the standard was like $10 per day. So they would do like $10. So if you do 10 days, you do $100. That was something that it wasn't standard, it was common. Let me say that. All right, so we'll do $250 for 7 days. All right. So now in most situations, the buyer doesn't give additional earnest money. So we're not gonna talk about that. And then we've dealt with the termination option. And then right here where it says title policy and survey, who do I say, who typically pays for the owner's title policy? Y'all remember who I said?
The seller.
The seller. The seller typically pays for it, right? So in this instance, the seller is paying for it and the title company is White Star Title. So here's the second place that you put the title company. You put them here, earnest money, as escrow agent. You put them here, title policy, seller's expense. All right. Most instances right here where it says the standard printed exception, this has, as it relates to the survey, if you do a new survey and there needs to be exceptions to what you pull, then you can either say it won't be amended, the survey won't be amended, or title policy won't be amended, or you can say the title policy will be amended, which is what we typically pick, this one. Now, in the buyer's best interest, who should pay for this? The seller. In the seller's best interest, who should pay for it? The buyer, right? So again, it's case by case, depends on what's going on. Now, I know this fee is not, it's not really that, you know, the most I've seen is about $100. So it's not like it's a very expensive fee if they amend the document. So we'll just put the seller. Okay. All right, so now the survey, that becomes a little sticky. Look, there's a reason that this is bold. It's a really big reason that this is bold. There was a time where it was common that the seller would have an existing survey and they would submit that existing survey to the buyer's lender, because the buyer's lender is going to require a survey. Well, that existing survey, if the lender didn't accept it or the title company didn't accept the existing survey, then somebody would have to order a new survey. Okay? All right, so I'm gonna say it again. Seller has an existing survey. It's submitted to the buyer's lender and the title company. If the title company and the lender accept the survey, then we good. If the seller and if the title company and the lender do not accept the survey, then somebody got to order a new survey. Okay, so now the question is, who's gonna pay for the new survey? If that happens, well, best interest for the seller, for the buyer to do it, best interest for the buyer, for the seller to do it. All right. What most people would do is that they will make it a seller's expense. Okay. Well, now the reason that this is in bold is because this says if the seller has an existing survey. So if we check this box, if the seller has an existing survey and it's not accepted by the title company or the buyer's lender, then the buyer shall obtain a new survey at the seller's expense or the buyer's expense. That's if he submits it. Okay. This bold says, if the seller does not submit the existing survey within the time prescribed, then the buyer obtains a new survey at seller's expense. So if we check this box, if we say, hey, look, send us the existing survey. If they don't accept it, then we're going to pay for a new survey. And they sign this document, but then the seller never submits the new survey, never submits the old survey, then it automatically becomes the seller's expense for him to pay for it. They had to make this part bold because this paragraph got a lot of people caught up because they're thinking, oh, well, no, this is not our expense. This is their expense. And they're like, well, did you submit the existing survey? Well, we thought we had one, but we didn't have one. It's like, oh, well, you got to pay for it. Okay. Because you marked this one. So now what a lot of people are doing is that if the seller has zero intention of paying for a survey, even if they may have an existing one, they still require the buyer to check the second one. Because the buyers, that one says the buyer is going to obtain a new survey regardless. So even if I have an existing survey, just to cover, I may not know where it is, but I know I have one. I don't know if I can find it, right? So go ahead and check box number 2. I'm gonna send it to you. And if your people accept it, the title company, the lender accept it, we good. But if I don't send it to you, you paying for it regardless. So that's what most people are doing right now. As far as days, the survey is one of the last things that needs to be done before you close. And a lot of times the days really depends on how busy the surveyors are. So say with the title company, like if you pick this box right here, then obviously you want the seller to furnish it as soon as possible. So you may put, say, 10 days right here. If you're here, then it don't matter. If the buyer is paying for it, it don't matter when they pay for it. They just gonna pay for it because it's just something that has to be done prior to closing. So here you can put like 30 days. If the seller's paying for it outright, then you probably want to put like 10 days or so that they got to do it before they're in default of the contract. But most of the time, you're gonna be checking the second one. And it's really up to the buyer. You can put whatever number. All right, so there's nothing, I'm not gonna go over nothing here. One thing I do want to point out, just like up here, this is bolded. If it's bolded, because I want y'all to go back and read these documents. If it's bolded, I want you to pay attention to it. It's a reason it's bold. Like this one's bolded and underlined. That's Trek saying, look, pay attention to this right here. Membership in property owners associations or HOA. If it's in an HOA, this is where we would put it. So when we look at the property we're looking at, we scroll down to the bottom, it'll let us know if there's an HOA. All right, so right here, look, it says HOA name. So there's not a homeowners association. So since there's not a homeowners association, and you would think something built in 1939, more than likely it's not going to have a homeowners association. Those really came out, you know, when suburbs start getting big, 40s, 50s. When we start seeing that. So older homes not really going to have homeowners association. So here we will put is not subject to a mandatory. If there was a company here, HOA, and if there was a name, they put yes, then on the contract we will put is. Okay, and pay attention to the bolded stuff. All right, that's seller's disclosure. So this is where we deal with the seller's disclosure. Most of the time, the listing agents put the seller's disclosure as a part of the MLS write-up. And that's another one of those things, Michaela, that if you look at the seller's disclosure, the seller has to disclose everything that they know is wrong with the property. So the seller's disclosure is what they utilize to get that information. Well, if it's on the MLS, just like, so ours was on the MLS. So let's see, where was it? Documents, attachments. All right, right here. So this is what the seller's disclosure looks like. So now when you get a listing, you're gonna have your seller fill this out. So this is where the seller discloses everything that they know. So Y is yes, N is no, U is unknown. And it asks them about everything that they can about the property. This is the seller's disclosure. So now, all right, so like right here, it asked about the foundation. So it's telling us foundation was prepared in 2021. So this is, and then they have to sign it. All right, so if you have one of these, then we would check buyer has received the notice. All right. Now, if it wasn't attached to the MLS or it wasn't email, sometimes the sellers are the list. Sometimes you can ask for it. If it's not on there before you submit the offer, you ask the listing agent, hey, we're considering submitting an offer. Go ahead and send us the property, the seller's disclosure so we can take a look at it. But if you have not received it by the time you're doing the contract, then again, it's in the best interest of the buyer to have a small window. It's in the best interest of the seller to have a large window. If I represent the buyer, I'm going to put like 2 days to get it to me. So within 48 hours, they need to get it to me after the effective date of the contract. All right.
What's 3?
I put 2 days.
I'm talking number 3.
Oh, the seller is not required. There are certain circumstances like a foreclosure, at a foreclosure for taxes, a property tax foreclosure. That sheriff is not required to furnish seller's disclosure. So there's a list of excluded people that under the Texas Property Code don't have to furnish seller's disclosure. But if you're not on that list, then everybody else is required. If they're selling a property, they're required by law to submit a seller's disclosure. All right, and then that seller's disclosure, remember that fourth document? It says it's required for if it's built before 1978. All right, so for our property, will we have to submit the lead paste paint addendum?
Yes,
Why?
that's before 78.
Because it was built before.
1978, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so the buyer, now right here where it says acceptance, we used to put per the inspection report, buyer accepts the property as is, provided seller at seller's expense shall complete the following specific repairs and treatments subject to the inspection report. We used to do that, but then Trek was like, stop doing that. And then they even remind us, stop putting that right there. Do not insert general phrases such as subject to inspections that do not identify specific repairs and treatments. What this part is for is that prior to even doing the inspection report, if you go in there and the seller says, hey, you know, the AC don't work, but we're gonna get it fixed. If they say that, then we will put here, boom, buyer accepts the property subject to seller fixing the air conditioning system.
Okay.
Or if the seller says we're gonna put in new carpet. All right, buyer accepts the property, seller. Now, if none of that is said, and we are gonna base it off of what the inspection report says, then we put buyer accepts it as is. All right, so they ain't said nothing to us, so we're gonna put buyers as is. All right, so home warranty. Remember we was talking about if I move in, if they move in and something break, then they have home warranty or residential service contract. And then remember I was talking about Cinch home warranty. So they have these warranties, and most of them is for the appliances or the AC or like the major electrical or plumbing systems. In many instances, a seller will pay for a home warranty for a year for a buyer to kind of cover that year they move in. Now it depends on how competitive the market is, right? Because according to the buyer's best interest, for the seller to do it. Seller's best interest, no, you buy my house and I ain't doing that for you, right? So it depends, it's case by case on if a buyer even gets this or not. If I'm representing a buyer and there's a lot of attention and I'm trying to make my contract, my offer more appealing, I'm making more competitive, am I gonna put something here?
Yes.
If I want my offer to be more competitive.
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask the seller to pay me more money to make my offer more competitive than other people's money, right? So if I wanna be more competitive, then I'm not gonna put nothing here, or I'm gonna make it as low, make it low. Most of the time, these home warranties, they run, I would say between $400 and $700 that the seller will pay up front for. So if I'm trying to compete as a buyer, representing a buyer, then this is one of those areas we may not put in them. We may just talk to the buyer, be like, look, man, you might have to get your own home warranty, or we'll make sure we do our due diligence in the inspection period, make sure everything's covered. But we want to be competitive, so we may forego this part. And how do you feel? Do you feel comfortable doing that? We may have that dialogue with them. All right. So with this situation, it's not really competitive. With this size home, we're gonna say $500. So what this is saying that it's going to be reimbursed, that seller shall reimburse buyer at closing for the cost of the service contract in an amount not to exceed $500. So it's pretty much saying that the seller is going to contribute $500 towards a home warranty. All right, so this right here talks about, so this is if you're buying a house, you're not going to really fill this out a lot because you're not really going to be representing other realtors. Like most realtors, they'll represent themselves. They just have to disclose in the contract that they're doing it. So this is where you make that disclosure. All right, so closing, again, case by case, it's in the buyer's best interest to have as much time. It's in the seller's best interest to have a small amount of time, right? So what you want to do is you want to talk to the lender that's going to be working with the buyer. So we would have reached out to the lender and we would have said, hey, how much time should we do? Because remember, this number is important because if we don't hit this number, now our client's earnest money is at risk. We didn't put up $3,500. We might can lose that $3,500 if we don't put the right number here. So we got to reach out to our lender. We're like, hey man, and then also another reason we want to reach out to the lender, because if we don't hit this number and my earnest money, the earnest money for my buyer becomes at risk, you know, we can go back to the lender and be like, man, you told us this number. Like, you need to pay them their money back. You need to pay half for it. Like it allows you to pull the lender into it, because they should have did better from a planning or telling you the numbers. That's another reason you want to go to the lender before you just put a number there. All right. So the lender may say, hey, it's going to take us 30 days. All right. So if today is the 15th, what I used to do was, if I'm filling out the offer today on the 15th, I used to give like maybe an additional 48 hours. So I would say I would send it to them. There may be some negotiation. We may get a fully executed contract by the 17th. So then the 17th is when I would start counting my 30 days. So I would say 30 days from the 17th versus saying 30 days from the 15th. Because if I say 30 days, if I start counting 30 days from the 15th, but we don't get it executed until 2 or 3 days later, then in essence, we ain't got 30 days. We got 27 days, right? So I start counting from when I think the contract's gonna be executed. All right, if I'm submitting on a Friday, and I'm like, all right, well, we probably ain't gonna get it done until Monday or Tuesday. So then next Tuesday, although today is Friday, next Tuesday, I'm gonna start counting my 30 days. All right. So here we say it's the 17th is when I'm gonna start counting. So I'm gonna just say October 17th. That should give me 30 days, right? It's 30 days in September. So October 17th should be 30 days. So here I would just put October. That's a Sunday, so I'm just say the 18th is what I would go with. Okay, so that's our close date. Possession. It's only 2 ways to possess it. Either my buyer's gonna move into it once they close and fund, or the sellers, we're gonna close, but the seller is gonna temporarily lease the house back from the buyer. Because maybe the seller maybe they're getting a house built and the house is not gonna be finished for another 2 weeks after they close, but they need the money from this to deal with moving expenses or something. So the seller's gonna agree to lease the house back from the buyer for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Or maybe the seller's moving out of state and, you know, the stuff that, you know, they need an additional week after the closing to get things finalized. So those are only 2 things. In our situation, it's vacant. We saw in the pictures, wasn't nobody living there, so we're gonna move in. All right, again, before we put anything in special provisions, we wanna see if there's a notice or an addendum. We're gonna look in the Texas Realtors Library. We're going to look in the TREC library to see if there's any addendum that deals with what we're trying to do before we put anything here. Okay. In some instances, y'all have heard about a seller contributing to closing costs. So y'all have heard about that, right? All right. This is where that's addressed in the contract. So Monica, Shantae, y'all have heard about that? Seller contributing to closing costs?
Yes.
Of course.
All right, so this is where you deal with that in the contract. It says seller shall also pay an amount not to exceed to be applied in the following order: buyer's expenses, which is in essence closing costs. All right, so now it's in the seller's best interest if what number goes here? 0. It's in the buyer's best interest if what number go here? The most money that we can get. Now, lenders put a cap on the amount of money a seller can contribute. So depending on the lender and depending on their underwriting guidelines, it may range from 3 to 6%. So, but again, it's case by case. If you ain't got a lot of competition, if you've been, you don't really have to be super competitive, then you can shoot for the 6% and tell the lenders and let the lender tell us that they can't give you all that money if they agree to it. If there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of people vying for the same property, then you want to have a hard conversation with your buyer and be like, man, how much cash do you really have? Do you really need this money from them? Like, you know what I'm saying? Can we just go in and just buy the house? We feel like we're getting it at a good deal. Let's just get it. You cover your own closing costs and let's get picked. All right. So it's really case by case. In this situation, our client is a strong client. They don't really need no money from the seller. But since we are offering list price, we'll see if we can get a little bit of cash from them. So we'll just say about 0.5%. We'll just say $4,000. See if we can get $4,000 contribution. Most of the time, if a person doesn't need the money for closing costs, then we just try to get it off the price. So instead of saying $699, we say $695, right? And then we'll pay for our own closing costs. But if people need the money, then a lot of times you just offer them list price and then you ask for the money here because you know your client needs that cash. All right, so that's a couple of ways to handle that. We'll just ask for $4,000. All right, we're running out of time. Let's see, 20 minutes. All right, so yeah, I passed all that stuff, so you read it on your own. Notices, right here, what you're putting is, this is information that the title company uses. This is how they contact the client. Because you don't want the title company to always have to call you, and then you got to call your client, right? So you want to put the contact information for the buyer, their mailing address, their phone number, their email. And then this is also a way that you can get the contact information from the seller and their phone number and their email. There are situations where the seller, the listing agent, you got a crappy listing agent and the deal's stalling out or it's being prolonged, and you might have to get on the phone with the seller and be like, look, man, this is going on, right? So I would, when that information is here, I would capture it. Let that be your break glass in case of emergency. Like, you don't want to reach out to the other agent's client because that can really start a whole mess of stuff. But there are some instances, hey, we're going to get it done. I got to break this glass and I got to pull this emergency tab so we can get it done. That's the emergency tab, calling the seller directly. Okay. All right. So now, what were the three forms? What were the other three forms that I say that we typically?
Third party.
Third party. All right.
And, HOA.
HOA.
And the lab.
Mm-hmm. This is the area where you determine what other addendums that you have. So we got third party, we have the addendum. Now, did we have to do the addendum subject to mandatory membership in a property owner association? No. How do we know that we don't need that one? Because they didn't have one. And we found that on what?
On the listing.
Listing information. All right. So we don't have to check that box. Now, do we have to check the addendum for disclosure of information on lead-based paint?
Yes.
Yes, because we have to have that one. All right. Now, although we're not checking that one, I'm still going to pull that one up if we don't run out of time. All right. Never, ever fill out the attorney information, because if you put the attorney's information on here, then you got to pay him. Somebody going to have to pay him out of the transaction. And you cannot close. If you put an attorney's information on here, you're not going to be able to close unless that attorney's whose name is on this contract is rectified. So don't put no attorney's information on here. And then y'all remember the execution date? How do we determine the execution date? What's the execution date? Because a lot of things said 3 days after the execution date, 10 days after the execution date, 30 days. How do we determine the execution date?
30 days. You gave it a few days from the days what the lender gave you, and it was October 18th.
No, that's the closing date.
Oh.
What's the execution date? Who knows the execution date? See, if I was giving away $1 million, none of y'all would get that.
The date that is signed, the date that is fully executed, both people sign it.
Look at Monica would have got that money. Monica would have got that. Yeah, so the execution date is the date that both signatures on, but everybody signed. But let me ask you this question. What if I'm the buyer, we submit it. Now, when I submit my offer, has my client signed?
No.
You say no? All right, Monica, when I submit the offer to the listing agent, has my client signed the offer?
They have to sign. They got to accept.
You're representing the buyer?
I'm representing the buyer and I'm submitting the offer to the seller.
They have to sign off on it.
You say
They have
what?
to approve it.
But
Don't they have to
signed-
approve it by signing it?
So you're saying the buyer has signed? So when the
Yes.
contract comes to the seller, the buyer's signature is already on it? You say no. Monica, you say yes.
Yes.
What do you say? You say yes. Shantae, what you say?
I say yes.
She Say yes. All right. I say yes, Joyce. Because think about it. If I send the seller a blank contract, then
It's null and void.
it's
No, I
really
don't think,
nothing.
I don't, maybe I heard you wrong. I thought the question you asked was whenever you accept the offer and you sign a contract and you send it over, does that mean the seller has accepted it?
No. My question was when I send the offer to the seller, is the buyer's signature on it already?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yes, the buyer's signature is on it already.
Okay.
So now, Monica, if the seller gets it and say, you know, we're not gonna give you $4,000, we're gonna give you $2,000, and they scratch it and they initial it and they sign it and they send it back to me, and I get it on to say I get it on the 17th. Is that the execution date? Is that fully executed?
No.
No, now the buyer has to have time to review it and decide if they want to accept those terms, because now you have to basically redo a whole new contract.
Oh, girl, ain't nobody out here redoing whole contracts like that. All they did was scratch it out. All they did was scratch that out. So no, but okay, but my question is the execution date the 17th? Because I got both signatures on the contract at this point, right? All I have is,
No.
instead of it saying 4,000, the seller scratched through it and put 2,000, but he signed it and then he initialed next to that 2,000. Is it fully executed?
No, not until the buyer agrees.
And the buyer agrees by doing what?
Signing it.
Finance.
Right. So the execution date is when the last person has initialed or signed off on any changes. So it's not
Oh,
just both signatures on the contract.
yes. So how come, so you just have to redo that one page, not the whole contract?
Girl, we ain't got to redo nothing. All my buyer was initial next to that scratch off, just right under where the seller.
Okay.
But like he initial here, and you initial here, and then boom, we go into and then I fill in the execution date. So now if he doesn't initial until the 18th, then that becomes the execution date. And then we send it off to everybody. So you put in the date that the last person signs or initials. Okay, so that's the last point.
Okay.
These are the signature lines. And then this is the broker information. I look in this system, look, it fills it in for you already. Let's go transaction desk, get it done. So transaction already auto-populates the information in there for you. All
Oh,
right.
that is good to know.
That's
All they
good
have to
know.
do is initial.
Yeah, well, there's some other ones that you got to fill in, but it takes some of the work off of you. And then this last
That's good.
part, make sure this is probably the most important part of the contract for you as a real estate professional. This is what ensures that you get paid. So you got to put your money. So in our listing, it says they paying 3% right here, buyer's agent, 3%. All right, so that means on this contract offer, you got to put 3%. If you don't put nothing there, then guess what?
You get nothing.
You get nothing.
You get nothing. You get nothing. You got to put what you get paid. That mean that's saying that I'm getting 3%. Yeah, I'm getting 3%. And what's 3% of $6.99? Come on, I always run numbers. I encourage y'all to do that too. That'll get you excited about real estate. See how much money out here.
The half or whatever. 500, then we're at about
3%.
10 or 12 grand.
3%. 1% is what? What's 1% of $6.99? $6,999. Now let's multiply that by 3. Even if we round it up to 7, what's 7 times 3? 21. $21,000. Let's go. See, y'all should do this, man. Y'all should calculate that money. If somebody sold this house, when somebody sells this house, they're gonna make 21 grand. So you better put that 3% there. Ain't nobody leaving 21 grand on the table. I won't let you. All right, so that's it. Now this last page, don't worry about this last page. The title company's gonna fill that out. These are the title company receipts. So that's just them saying that they got the option money. They saying they got the earnest money. They're saying they got the contract. So they'll fill that out. All right, so that's the 1 to 4 family. Any questions about the 1 to 4 family before I try to squeeze in these other two addendums? No? Was that helpful?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
All right, so let's see. Let's see if it saves. Guess I need to save it. Let me see. Do I need to save? Oh, so like if we were ready to send this off for somebody to sign it, then we would just click this button and it'll take us there. Wow.
I looked up.
Yeah. It's all there for you. I want to make sure it don't not save. They don't give you no save button. It's not. I right click. All right. I'm just keep your fingers crossed that it don't go away. Oh, here's the save button. All right. So this is where you save it. Click save. All right, form is saved. Ooh, I'd have been mad. Don't y'all do that. Don't save it. I'm gonna be mad. Matter of fact, I will fill it out as I'm going through it. I will fill it out periodically, like maybe every 2 or 3 pages that you fill out, then save it. Because you know how these computers do. Just in case. They'll hurt you. All right, so then let's go back to transaction forms. All right. So third-party financing addendum. Now, we need the third-party financing addendum. Why?
Because they're going to be financing through a third party.
Absolutely. Because, so how do we know that they're not paying cash?
Because they would have told us.
So on the
Oh, because they have a pre-approval? Or,
well, we know they're not paying cash because on that 1 to 4 family contract, cash portion, if they were paying cash, and we were paying $699,000 cash for the property. On the first page of the 1 to 4 family under cash, what number will we to put there?
Oh, the full price.
The
Oh,
full price. And then for financing, that second line, what we to put there? 0.
mhm.
So how do we know that they using a third party financing?
Okay. Because of how we filled out the 4 family contract.
Absolutely. We didn't put the total amount at that cash portion. All right, so now they're gonna, with the third party financing addendum, there's multiple financing options. Most of the time, it's either gonna be conventional. Are y'all familiar with VA?
Yes.
VA
Well, kind of.
financing? All right, so VA financing is right here. That's VA guaranteed financing. So if a person is using a VA loan, this is the section you would fill out. If a person's using, y'all know FHA? If a person is using an FHA,
Yes.
all right. If they're using an
Mhm.
FHA loan, you're gonna check this box. If they're using the Texas Veterans Land Board, you will use this. This is if you're using conventional. They have the USDA financing, you will use that. So that's why you gotta speak to the lender before you fill the form out. Because that's another thing, you need to know what kind of financing they're using, because you're gonna have to fill out that section in the third-party financing addendum. All right, so in this particular situation, our people, they're using a conventional loan. All right, the conventional loan, we said they're putting 39% down, so that means they're financing. This is where you put how much they're financing. This is their loan amount, not the purchase price. So I wouldn't put $699 here. I would put what? $660.
Mhm.
They're financing, $660. All right, and then we're getting now, you can get a 30-year loan, right? Or 15, y'all heard of 15-year loans? Right, all right, they used to have 10-year loans.
Mhm.
So depending on how many years is where, this is where you will put it, due in full. So they're getting a 30-year loan, so we put 30. All right, if they were getting a 15-year loan, we'd be 15. We're gonna say 30. All right, with interest not to exceed. Now, again, talk to the lender. Hey, what interest rate do you think they get? Well, I don't know. This is what they're gonna say. Well, I don't, you know, it's not locked in right now. It's no guarantee that they'll get this, but rates are running around 3.5, around 4%, right? So you just put 4%. If rates are running around 3.5, 4, then I'll put 4% or 4.5%, right? Because this just says not to exceed, not to go higher than. All right, per year, annum, that's year, per annum for the first. This is not an adjustable rate mortgage. Y'all heard about adjustable rate mortgages? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so an adjustable rate mortgage is that it changes. So if it was an adjustable rate, we would say not to exceed this amount for the first 2 years, and then it adjusts after that, or the first 5 years, then it adjusts. But for a 30-year mortgage, it's a fixed rate. So for here, it would be for the first how many years? For the first 30 years, right? All right, and then with origination charges as shown on the buyer's loan estimate of the loan. Again, you gotta talk to the lender. What's the origination fee? Now, they don't charge more than 2%. I know they don't charge more than 2% because remember, it's not to exceed. So I would just put 2%, right? Because some of them don't charge nothing. They don't charge any origination fees, but I'll put 2%. So that's the first mortgage. Now, this, because anything above $500,000 is considered a jumbo loan. And where they take 2 loans and put them together. So this one will probably be a jumbo loan, but I'm not going to get into all of that and confuse all of y'all. But there are some instances where there's a first mortgage loan and a second mortgage loan to cover, so to hedge the risk of the bank. So the bank say, yeah, we'll fund it, but we're going to fund it with somebody else. We're both going to put something into it. All right, so is this a conventional loan? Check that box, fill that out. Oh, you know what? There's another document that I need to tell y'all about because it's conventional. All right, if it was FHA, we wouldn't need the other addendum. But since it's conventional, we need the other addendum, and this is why. On this document, right here, approval of financing. Well, this is contingency period. So this right here is where you protect your client as it relates to if they don't get qualified for the loan. This is another important day, another important number. So you got to talk to the lender and say, look, how many days you're going to close? That's why that closing date is important. But they say, look, it'll be 30 days. All right, if it's going to take you 30 days, then we're going to make this contract contingent 25 days. Right. So that means by day 25 or day 20, we'll say 27 days. By day 27, we need to know if this person can get qualified for this loan or not. Because if they don't get qualified by day 27 and we continue to move forward, then if on day 28 or day 29, they don't get qualified, then they don't get their earnest money back. So that's why this is important. All right, so this contract is subject to buyer obtaining buyer approval. If buyer cannot obtain buyer approval, and that's buyer approval, financial approval, buyer may give written notice to seller within 27 days after effective date. And this contract will terminate and the earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. Okay? So that's another key one. You want to check it. That protects the buyer. Now, if you're trying to be competitive, right? So then a seller may get you to negotiate this and say, well, we won't do a 27-day, do a 20-day. I mean, if you say they're a strong buyer, they shouldn't have any issues with their finances, then you don't need 27 days, right? So you may get into that whole situation. And I mean, if you feel good about it, then you go with them. But that's what that part is for.
So does any of that section have to do with whether or not if the buyer has a pre-approved letter?
Well, they're gonna have a pre-approval letter already.
Okay.
So this is like full approval,
Okay.
right? And gone through the underwriting process,
Okay.
you know, got the appraisal, got all that stuff.
Okay.
All right. All right. So now this right here, you see this FHA VA required provision. if you're doing an FHA or a VA loan, you don't need this other addendum I'm gonna talk about. But since we're dealing with conventional, we need the other addendum. The reason being is because the appraisal is protected, meaning if it doesn't appraise. So we're saying we're gonna pay $699 for this house. If the appraiser goes out there and says, oh no, it's only worth $450, then the bank's gonna be like, well, we're not gonna give you a loan for $699. The most we gonna give you is 80%. No, because remember, we put 20% down.
Okay.
So the most we're gonna give you is 80% of $450. And that means if you still want this house, you gotta pay cash, you gotta come out of your pocket. Well, if it was an FHA loan, you're covered because it says if the contract purchase price or cost exceeds the reasonable value of the property, no, right here. So or direct lender setting forth the appraised value of the property of not less than, so this is where we will put $699. Okay. So that's, now you covered if we're going FHA VA. But if I'm going conventional, this don't cover. So that means now, if the appraisal says it's worth $450, I can't back out of the deal. Here, I can back out. If I don't have that extra cash, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna terminate and give my earnest money back. It didn't appraise. If I'm conventional and it don't appraise, hey, the seller like, hey, you gotta do it. If you don't do it, I keep your earnest money. You can walk away, but I'm gonna keep your earnest money. So that's why we need this other addendum. All right, and then we'll sign. So that's the third party financing addendum. Okay. Save that. All right. All right, so transaction forms. All right, so we'll do third party. All right, so the addendum for mandatory, this is a one-page addendum. And pretty much it's just about, it really talks about the subdivision information. So it's about when you want to receive the covenants, the deed restrictions and things like that. You'll have clients sometimes that's important to them because of how they want to use the property. Like they want to lease the property out. Some HOAs don't let you lease out properties. If they want to add to the property, and some HOAs don't let you add, or they don't let you go a certain height, or, you know, so they're going to want to know it. So, so where you pick here, right here, it just says that the seller is going to obtain it within a certain amount of time. So it's going to be on them to go get the information about the subdivision. This is the seller. This one is the buyer. So the seller's not going to do it. The buyer is going to go figure the information out. Most of the time you ask the seller to do it because it's their HOA. They got the phone numbers. Go get your information. You may have it already. This one right here says the buyer has received it. All right. And then it asks them if they want to update a resale certificate. And then this one right here is if the buyer don't care. All right. So you pick one of these 4 boxes. And then this right here, if there are any transfer fees, sometimes HOAs charge transfer fees. This is where you determine who pays for the transfer fees. So the way it reads is, except this buyer shall pay any and all association fees, deposits, reserves, and other charges associated with the transfer of property not to exceed, and then you say how much, right? So in the buyer's best interest, I'm trying to pay as little as possible. Seller's best interest, I want you to pay for all of it, right? So if you represent the buyer, if it's case by case, if it's real competitive, then you probably say, you know what, we'll pay for it. How much is it? If they don't know, say, all right, we'll pay $150. Usually it's no more than about 200, between 150, 250 is kind of what it is. If it's not really competitive, I will pay $25 and then you pay the rest. So that's what you're saying to seller. We're telling you to pay for it. So in this situation, we'll do that. We'll say $25. We're not paying no more than $25. You pay the rest of it. All right, and then right here, this is a new one too. The HOAs are now charging like absorbent amounts of money to release the certificate. The HOA certificate, all it says is it's like an accounting of what the seller owes. It shows if they owe money, It shows if their HOAs are up to date. It gives like a history of their payment. These HOAs is charging like $300-400 for you to get that one document. So since they started doing that, right now, this is where we determine who pays for that. If the buyer's gonna pay for that or if the seller's gonna pay for that. And then they're forcing the title companies to pay for it up front. And then the buyer or the seller reimburse the title company. And you cannot close until the title company has that information, because that's how they rectify their accounts. So the HOAs are hold up an entire transaction. So that's why we got to talk about it now, because you don't want that to happen.
So either the buyer or the seller can pay for it, but regardless, they're gonna get reimbursed.
No, the title company is gonna pay for it up front to get the info, and then either the buyer or the seller has to reimburse the title company. Yeah. All right, so that's what covers this one right here.
When do you get that certificate back and the seller owed a whole bunch of money and the HOA didn't act on it? Now the buyer absorbs that?
No. So the title company, now they had that information, and then they, out of the proceeds of the seller, they pay the HOA. That's why they need it before they close, because they have to rectify all accounts.
Okay.
So the seller's still paying for it.
Okay.
And it has to be paid before closing. So that's the HOA addendum. Lead-based paint. All right, so lead-based paint, that's this one. Again, it's a one-pager. And it's just saying about if the seller has, if they knew about lead-based. Most sellers don't know. Like, I don't know, House Bill 1939. I mean, these people may have bought this house in 2000. They don't know if the house had lead-based paint or not. So most of the time they just say seller has no actual knowledge. Seller has no reports. Now right here it says buyer waives the opportunity to conduct a risk assessment or inspection of the property for presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. Most buyers don't care. Like, it really only comes into effect if you got little small kids and they eat paint chips, or if the paint's chipping. Like, you know what I'm saying? If your kid not eating paint chips or paint's not chipping, or if you ain't got a little kid, you don't need it. But if it is a concern, then the buyer can have an inspector come and do like a paint test. All right. Right here, buyer has received the pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. You can Google that for your people. Just Google it and send it to them. All right. Buyer has received copies of all information listed below. You may not have nothing, so we'll leave that blank. We'll put that there. And then the sellers. So this, the listing broker and the other broker. So everybody got to sign that form. So the buyer signs, the seller signs, you sign, the listing broker sign. A lot of times, like, I'm surprised Lisa didn't have this form. A lot of times it'll be filled out by the seller already and signed by the seller, and it'll be uploaded to the MLS. So now all the buyer has to do is sign.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so now the last form, because we have a conventional loan, all right, let's see. Need to add a form. So here, I want to show y'all this one form and then we'll be done. Forms. Add a form. All right, this is a trick form. All right, right here. This addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal. You have to use this form if it's a conventional loan. If it's not if it's an FHA loan, then you're good with the third-party financing addendum. If it's conventional loan, and if you want to protect your client's earnest money, if that property doesn't appraise, this is the addendum you got to use in addition to the third party. So you still got to do the third party financing addendum, but you got to do this one too. And what it says is you can either do a full waiver, meaning, and if you click full waiver, that means you don't care if it appraises. If it don't appraise, you're like, I'm moving forward regardless. I'm gonna pay cash, whatever. That's a full waiver. A partial waiver is I'll pay more than appraised value, but only up to a certain amount, right? So I'll pay 10,000 over what the appraised value is. So if it comes in at 450, so if I'm asking 690, 699, if it come in at 689, I'll pay that 10. But if it come in at 450, then we terminate, right? So that's that partial waiver. All right, and then this is the additional right. So this is the addendum that covers the seller, the buyer, if it's not a FHA loan.
What's the bottom one, the additional?
Yeah, in addition to buyer's right to terminate, buyer may terminate the contract within a certain amount of days if the appraisal is less than, if the appraisal is less than a certain amount. That's where it's covered. Then the buyer can terminate. So that's that bottom part. All right, that's it, man. Are there any other questions? We got through it. Y'all got lucky because ain't nobody came in for more orientation. Where more orientation people at? Where more orientation people at? All right, what?
Okay, I have a question.
What's your question?
Okay, so once we complete the contract, do you go over those before we submit it to the client or?
Well, I would have your mentor look at it.
Okay, okay,
Somebody, yeah, definitely your mentor, myself, or somebody needs to look at it
okay.
before you
And
submit.
that's every time or?
No, just until you feel, just until you get comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah, so your first ones, yeah, you want to do that.
sure, okay.
That it? Is this a good one? All right.
Yeah, it was a great one.
All right. Well, y'all know where to find me. If y'all need anything, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.